Did you know that trauma impacts how we navigate our careers, but most career advice ignores this reality? Imagine feeling confident and safe at work while honoring your healing journey. Welcome to your Trauma-Wise Career Guide, the podcast that reimagines career development for trauma survivors. I'm your host, Cindy Bennett, a trauma survivor turned trauma-informed career coach and founder of the Resilient Career Academy. If you're navigating your career while honoring your healing journey, you are in the right place. Welcome back to your Trauma-Wise Career Guide. I'm Cindy Bennett. I'm here with my dear friend, sister, and mentor, Kimberly Weeks, who is the narcissistic abuse coach. And we are here today, and we're going to have a conversation about narcissism in the workplace. So I will ask Miss Kimberly if you would just allow people to know something about you, what you feel comfortable.
A great question. There's a lot to know, I guess. We'll start with, just for this particular audience, I have experienced narcissistic abuse from my childhood. I grew up in a narcissistic family system in which there was a person who was an abuser, and then there was also a person who was enabling that abuse in our house by staying in the environment or the relationship with that person. Because of that example, I grew up and got married to a person who was like my abuser and had my own children and own family system grow in that same environment or kind of environment that I had when I was a child, and got to a breaking point, had a epiphany moment because my body was collapsing. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and my brain was breaking. It broke. I'll say it that way. My brain broke. I literally have lesions in my brain. I was diagnosed with spinal lesions. And through that whole process, I got to the place where I could not be in that type of relational environment anymore. I felt like I was dying. I felt like I was going to die. So I know this is heavy to be like, I'm coming in hot and heavy, but that's my story. And so I went through the divorce process. After that, I kind of had a complete kind of nervous breakdown. My body collapsed. I lost the ability to walk and came out of that. And I was like, what in the world just happened to me? And went on a journey. This is where I met Cindy. Went on a journey to discover how to break the agreements and the patterns that I was raised in. And so that's kind of, a little bit about me in terms of my story. I became a coach. I became a narcissistic abuse recovery coach. I helped start an institute called the Global Trauma Institute, where we train practitioners. But another part of my story too is incorporating the impact of abuse and your family system dynamics on you spiritually, on your relationship with God, on how you see yourself as a person who's made in God's image. And so I have a community that works through all of those dynamics called Stand Firm for Women. We help walk women through the recovery process. And that's a little bit about me. I think the most important thing is when I came out of my marriage, I started seeing all of the ways that abuse and systems of power and systems of dominance and control were showing up in my life. Friendships, workspaces, relationships with people from my past. The family system dynamics became a lot more clear because I wasn't clear about that. And so that's kind of what happens in your journey. Once you start learning about the dynamics of narcissism and narcissistic abuse, you start to see how they get uncovered in different places in your life. And the workspace is a very big place of that due to the fact that your livelihood's attached to it. Many of the family system dynamics you grew up in terms of trying to please authority figures is attached to it. And how you showed up as a child can start to replay itself in how you show up as an employee. That's where we'll start from there.
I see that all the time. Childhood trauma shows up in the workplace. People don't get it. They don't understand it. They don't see it. They experience it, but they don't know what it is. And so illuminating that for people is helping them to see, oh, by the way, this is how you grew up. This is your nervous system.
Yes.
And this is just a well-worn neural network.
right now.
Yes, it's why you compete like you did with your siblings. It's why you people please like you did with one of your parents or both of your parents to be seen and heard. It's why when something collapses in the environment or you have some kind of rupture, you have the flood of fear. You have the flood of being a fixer to try to fix the situation because that's the same position you were in when you were a child. You were holding everybody together by being a listening ear, by being the person that took responsibility for things, by being parentified. All of that shows up in the workplace in a very big way. It's an opportunity for healing, but many of us are operating subconsciously from those young parts of ourselves, and we don't even know it until we have some kind of collapse. A lot of the clients that come to me and they're dealing with workplace narcissistic abuse feel like children in the presence of authority figures. And they operate in the same way they did with their parents and feel stuck in that pattern. I don't know if that's been your experience as you've been working with this.
Oh, yes, so much so. You go into a boardroom and you come out as a little kid with grown-up clothes on.
Yes,
Your business.
yeah.
That's the picture in my mind.
Tom Hanks, you just like, walking in a suit. Yes.
Yes, big. That's what comes to my mind, right? And that happens to a lot of us. And it's surprising a lot of times, right? I mean, because we don't ever expect to get triggered. That's a big word, right? It's overused a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
But we can go into a meeting and all of a sudden we're knocked off of center. We're dysregulated in a meeting and we have stuff coming out of our mouth that we would have never said.
Yes. Yes.
And then we have to like, oh, that was not good. I can tell you a time when I threw my manager under the bus because he tried to take my idea and purport it as his own. And so in a very large meeting, I started asking him questions about the whole thing. And I knew he didn't know that because it wasn't his idea. Well, it's not a good career advancement strategy, right? I have a lot of lessons like this,
Right.
right? But that was a trigger response. That was, oh, yeah, I'm going to show that you don't know that, and I'm going to make you look ridiculous. So again, not good. It was a triggered response.
Yeah. Yeah. And interestingly, you can actually, and maybe you've experienced this too, you've been in a meeting and you can actually see the person transform into a very childlike state. And you can see them shrink. Their whole body like goes from being alert to just this kind of coward space. And you can hear the tonality of their voice shift. And it sounds like a young part of that person, even though you're looking at an adult body. And so those moments often create lots of dysregulation because you're embarrassed. You don't know what just happened. It's like something just took over your body, and it is a young part of you that takes over the conversation. And things do come out of your mouth that you don't want and aren't consistent with what you believe. But in that moment, your body's in survival, and you think that's the best way in order for you to stay safe in that environment. Then that starts this whole gossip wheel in the workplace because other people witness that transformation for you. And, often people leave those environments when you've had a blow up, when you've had those moments, and they feel lots of shame. And that shame is connected to shame they felt in their childhood too.
Yeah, that's really hard, right? So part of what I try to help people do as a career coach is to help them create awareness of where those triggers are and what those situations are. So I have a tool that I give out for free, and it's the Workplace Trigger Tracker. And it's just to create awareness of what's the intensity of that trigger. What was the situation? What was the intensity? Because the more intense it is, the more records of that experience you have in your database.
Absolutely.
Right? The database of your mind. And then how do you deal with that? What is your coping strategy? You're kind of like planning ahead because you know that these are there, and you can take those triggers and you can take them to therapy and work through them and empty the balloon, if you will.
Yeah.
And it takes away some of the power of the trigger, right? But they don't ever go away. They just kind of shrink. Right?
Yeah, they lessen in intensity, they lessen in frequency, and they're less charged. I love what you just said because the more data is backing up those experiences and those memory pathways, the more intensity it is. And so over time, as you work through and process, it's not that the data's not there. It just gets filed at a different place in your brain.
Yeah, and you can complete that memory and put it into long-term storage.
Yes.
And then you don't have to carry all of that together, and it's taking up room in your brain. But then the pathways that you go down and the responses and reactions that you have, they're well-worn neural networks. We have been on that path. We have worn out that path as children, and we know that that has been successful for us before. As children, they were adaptive.
Yes.
They were adaptive responses to very difficult, maybe dangerous experiences and environments. But then as we get to be adults, they're not so adaptive anymore, right? And so they become maladaptive as we're starting to sort of change that behavior, change that response or reaction. We've got to work hard to cut trail.
Yeah. I kind of liken it to, okay, so let's say you are invited to a black tie affair and you're supposed to dress according to the occasion, right? But you go in with some sweatpants and a t-shirt, right? Like that sweatpants and t-shirt don't match the current situation. And in the same way, what was adaptive for us when we were children, it's no longer needed. It's not appropriate for the new occasion. And so for me, when I talk to folks about their survival patterns that they grew up, their trauma responses that they have were very successful. They got them where they are. They got them here. They survived those situations. We look at, okay, so those clothes don't fit anymore. We need to get some new clothing for these new situations. And so it's not a matter of maladaptive for me or adaptive. It's really just, does this fit where you are in the situation? And guess what? You may come across some people where your reaction that's charged does fit because it is dangerous. So you don't want to not have those skills that you learned and you've perfected and have been well worn. You know what I mean? You need those. So those moments of big reaction or response can sometimes be indicators of who you're actually dealing with on the other side of the situation as you're working through it. And because you don't have them all the time, because when we first start going through doing our own personal work, we have big reactions to a lot of things, and it doesn't necessarily match the circumstance that's present. But the more that we work through that, when we do have a big reaction, we can start to see that it's because there is a person in the environment or the environment itself is actually a dangerous situation. And our nervous system is alerting to, it's actually cueing us to, oh, that's the same thing as that. And so, it's been interesting as I've been doing my own inner work that you don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I used to think the goal in healing was to be zen all the time and to be calm and have this regulation all the time. No, our bodies are created to help us survive, to cue us and alert us to danger. We need our body to do that in order for us to be safe at work or otherwise.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because we were just talking about that before we came on. We were talking about how our body, we have this neuroception, right? We have this superpower as trauma survivors that our nervous system is really tuned in, fine-tuned into anything that looks any part of dangerous. Right. And we can see trouble a mile ahead. We are really good at risk management, knowing when something's going to blow up in a meeting with a client or customer. We are all over that. We can see that a mile ahead, right? But when our nervous system is telling us that your alarm system's going off, I usually use this story about the alarm system in your house. Your alarm's going off. The dog barks. I had a dog, and I used to say, what's my nervous system? An overactive nervous system, seeing people in the yard. It's just the neighbor. Now, you can control that. You can say, oh, I've checked it out, and I can turn off the alarm, right? But when you turn off the alarm, because you don't see the whole picture.
Right.
Right? you can get yourself into trouble, which is what happened to me.
Yes.
Right. Right. This past time. Right. So I was seeing things that I didn't have the whole context for. I would see little bits of behavior, like not being listened to, not being heard or acknowledged when I'm offering my input.
Oh.
Like little things like that
Well,
that I hadn't seen before. I worked with this guy for 9 months
no.
and I hadn't seen that in him before. And then with all the stuff that I had on my plate, I didn't have the capacity to respond to those warning signals that you get,
Yeah.
right? So talk about that. Talk
What do-
about how can we be more attuned to those little things.
Spidey senses. Yeah. Yeah. To me, you said something very powerful because one of the strategies of the larger macro system globally is to have people so occupied in their minds, so busy, so needing to survive. So they have 2, 3 jobs and kids and schedules that they are not able to pay attention and attune to their own bodies on a regular basis. A big part of you having wisdom in the workplace is having enough embodiment within yourself to pay attention to your surroundings. And because most people, and I will say some people, I think it's most, but some people live a lifestyle that is so packed from the moment their eyes open to the time they go to sleep with things that they have to focus on from one thing to the next, back, because you don't have any margin to be present in the moment. It's very easy for you not to be able to pick up the cues that your body is giving to you. Not to mention dissociation, not to mention the fact that people are disconnected from their bodies because of all kinds of things that have happened to it. And so a big part of having wisdom in the workplace is you having a lifestyle that allows you to have enough time to slow down. And that doesn't have to look like, oh, I spend 3 hours in the morning doing meditation. It could just be when I wake up in the morning, I don't touch my phone for the first 30 minutes to an hour. It could just be when I go to bed, I put my phone in another room so that I can read, so that I can listen to music, so that I can journal. Having pockets of time where your body is able to slow down enough to be present with whatever is coming up for you, thinking through your day, thinking through conversations with your kids or your spouse, those types of things where you put into your schedule time for you to attune to your own body and your own nervous system are necessary for you to take that wisdom into the workplace. And a lot of us, we have a lot of voices, whether it's voices on social media, voices on YouTube, voices of people in the office.
Voices are in our head.
Your head, voices. There's no like stillness and silence enough for you to even reflect on what is going on in your mind. And those moments, the moments that you're able to slow down and connect to, what am I feeling? What did I feel in that meeting? How do I feel about this relationship I have with my boss or my coworkers or the team that I'm on? What's been happening? How do I feel about the work that I'm doing? These are questions that are just beautiful questions for our own reflection as to how things are going in life. And most of us are literally waking up tired and passing out at the end of the day tired. This is why I left corporate America. And I've been blessed to be able to stay out for the last almost 9 years. Because for me, I did for my body with the MS and with the inflammation, my body needed a whole reset, a lifestyle reset. And there are spaces where I'm able to go back into more corporate work where I'm doing different things, but I do it from home. Many trauma survivors pick up people's energy And it can shut down being able to pay attention to what's in your body. Just feeling other people's energy in the space on a regular basis is a lot.
100%. 100%. That's why I work from home too.
Yes.
Right? Because it can be overwhelming when your nervous system is highly tuned like that, because you pick up all the noise in the environment.
So it's interesting because what I'm saying is that it's very important that people are intentional. The world system is not going to give you that space. You have to take it by force.
100%. Yeah, that's why I recommend like a daily presencing practice. I get up in the morning, I do my devotions, I have some prayer time in the morning, I do some journaling right before I start my day. I do the same thing at the end of the day to kind of just like, let me just dump this. Let me just dump the day with God, and then I can sleep and He'll hold it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it gets you into the habit of processing what you have been walking through. Instead of it stacking day after day after day, week after week after week, and then all of a sudden you're in a meeting and that's a big reaction because you haven't had time to be able to process and think about these things that have been going on, where you were kind of like, oh, that was weird how that person said that. It's interesting that they left me off that email. Wonder what that's about. Or, man, I noticed that, I used to be the first person that my boss would call about X, Y, or Z. And now I'm hearing about it from other people. Wonder what that's about. I mean, just those little things, they're registering in your body, whether you pay attention to it or not.
We talked about that a little bit before, about noticing. I can make a career out of noticing. This is one of the top therapy skills that I have been given, is the ability to notice. Just notice without judgment what is happening in the environment around you, what is happening in your peers' life, what is happening in your manager's life, what is happening in the project team that you're working with, what is happening for them. And I think we talked a little bit about how my peer that had this blow up with me, we're continuing the conversation from last week, this peer that had this blow up with me, looking back after that whole timeout, that whole thing was a timeout for me, was like, oh, hold on, what just happened?
Yep.
Looking back at that going, oh, I did notice that at the time, and I dismissed it because I didn't see it in context. I didn't see how all the dots connected, right? So when he got promoted to a lead, it was almost as if the power went to his head. Now, he's not working for the business partners. He's dictating to them what they're allowed to do. And that is not how it works. And so he got this God complex. I don't know how else to say it, but that's what it looks like to me. Like, my stuff doesn't stink. And I recognize that. That is something that I recognize from my childhood. And I'm like, ooh, that feels really familiar. And me telling him, hey, this document that we've been working off of, you haven't accounted for what the business is saying to me over the last month and a half. Can you modify it? No, that was not part of our scope. And we're not. So that it was things like that had not been part of our relationship at the beginning. And so it's noticing a shift in people, because for some people, they're like wolves in sheep clothing. Okay. Because you don't know these people when you get to work with them. How long can they maintain that behavior before some true colors start to show? And we as trauma survivors are really in tuned that way, because I don't know about you, but it's hard to trust people. It's hard to establish relationships with people as a trauma survivor. It's not one of our strong points.
And we should be testing out people, and we should be checking the fruit of their lives, and we should be doing all of that. Because a part of what happened in the Bible in the garden was there was no testing of what voices were being communicated. And so for me, even what you're saying is, it's hard to trust people, but the truth is, we shouldn't be trusting people until they prove they're trustworthy.
Yeah, they have to earn the right. They have to earn the trust, right?
Correct.
And you give people grace at the beginning. You're just meeting them. You're going to just accept them how they are. And then you're going to let their activity, their behavior, their responses, all the things about them inform your opinion of them and inform that trust. Like they can earn it. They can get marbles in the marble jar, as Brown says, right?
Yes.
They can earn that. And then all of a sudden you see a shift. I was like, "Ooh, isn't that interesting?" Looking back after the whole eruption that I took the time out because, well, I had to, right? When someone blows up at you and speaks over you in a meeting and totally disrespects you in a meeting, who's your peer, number one, it takes you by surprise because you're not expecting that. And number two, you react. I reacted and said some things that I wasn't very proud of privately to him, which he then announced on the call. I wasn't too proud of myself for that reaction, but also I didn't say it out loud. I was proud of that. I was like, okay, well, that was a learning moment. In the past, I've said things like that out loud. Now I'm doing something private. I'm making progress, right?
Yeah, but you just said something really important. You said that you were jarred because there was this very big shift in the way the person presented after had been having interactions with them for a long time.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like on Scooby-Doo, I've got 4 boys, so I watch. The mask comes off and you're like, what? You are disoriented.
Yes.
This isn't the person I've been talking to. This isn't the person I've been having communications with. Who is this person? Because I haven't gotten a whiff of this from this person at all.
100%.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense.
100%. And so we had to quick end that meeting. It was escalating and there was a lot of people on that meeting. I was mortified and embarrassed and all the things. And I was just humiliated on the call.
Yeah.
And I was so upset. I was like, what the heck just happened?
Right.
And then I just had to sit with it for a moment. Of course, I have a lot of good relationships there in that team. I've worked hard to establish working relationships with people, caring relationships with people in the workplace. And so people that work closely with me reached out to me right away. Are you okay? That was not okay. Right? Because the first thing we do when something happens as trauma survivors, we say, did I do something? Did I do something wrong? What did I do? That's our first knee-jerk reaction. Right? Did I do something wrong? Did I overstep? Did I cut him off? Did I do something to create that situation?
Yeah. You're trying to figure out, like, what did I do that warranted that reaction or that behavior from that person? Of course.
Yeah, it was a big reaction. It was a really big reaction. And I was just stunned. And of course, I'm very emotional. And thankfully, I work from home. So, like, I don't have to be on camera when I'm at work or whatever. And I was just like, ooh, I just need to stop for a minute. The lady who's working with me got on and I was hysterical. And I was like, I am not okay. I am not okay. And she's like, let's just breathe together and maybe you can go outside and get some fresh air. It was wonderful. It was wonderfully grounding to have somebody understand what it meant to get regulated.
That's
right.
Good. I'm so glad that what you experienced after that.
Yeah. And then I pinged my boss and I said, I'm having a moment and I really need to talk to you. So I go outside. This woman who I just talked to works on the same floor as my boss. I love my boss. I've worked with him for 10 years. She goes to his desk. He says, this is what happened. You really need to talk to her. She's not okay. He calls me on my personal cell phone and he's like, I just heard what happened. I'm so sorry that happened to you. You should not be doing that. Like all the things that you needed to really hear from a leader who's a really good leader.
So good.
And just the people checking in on me, my business partners checking in on me, saying, are you okay? I'm worried about you. Like for the 2 days, I was just wonderfully held by the relationships that I had built with these people. And it felt so wonderful. And it was like, oh, yes, this is what I needed as a child when things like that happened. I needed that.
Yes. You need.
And it was so reparative for me to experience that in that moment and to have them really be concerned with me and saying, that was not your fault. You were treated badly. you were treated badly. And I didn't think I did anything wrong, but then to have that confirmation was like, okay, this is not about me. I own my reaction to that situation. I owned it. And I told him, I said, I'm not innocent here. I reacted badly, but I did not initiate that. And so I was like, okay, now I can kind of dig out from all of that.
Uh-huh.
You know, you were one of the first people I reached out to, right after I got myself, so I wasn't crying. I think I might have still been crying when I reached out to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you think about childhood, if you think about experiences with the school bully or the embarrassment on the playground, those are big moments of exposure. I'm going to use that word, that mistreatment in the face of a crowd. There is an element of exposure and vulnerability in those environments. And so the fact that you were able to reach out to people and advocate for yourself and speak and take the time and be held, because a lot of people would go into a hole and not let anybody into that space of that pain or that embarrassment. It's a big deal. That's very big progress. And I say, put you in survival mode and then wants to critique how you handle survival mode.
Here's the funny part. I think it's funny now. But after the meeting, he invited me to a meeting with all the male leaders 4 times with the title of the meeting, Let's Get on the Same Page. And I was like, decline, 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 decline. Here I am setting boundaries. I'm like, what you don't understand is you don't get to talk to me right now.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I felt very empowered. You are not talking to me. Not after what you just did.
Not without an apology. If you're coming
No.
for an apology to own your
Yep.
behavior, that's one thing. But if you just
Yep.
want to kind of smooth it over and brush it over, like, nah, we're not doing that.
No, he's going to explain away everything that he did and want to blame me for why didn't I stick up for him and all the things.
Right.
I'm like, oh, I heard that story before. No, we're not going there.
You know, I said to a client the other day, I said, it's a hard saying, but your presence is the agreement with that person's behavior. And your absence is you saying, that's not okay.
That was not okay. Thank you for saying that. It was beautifully said. Yes, it was not okay.
Yeah.
And my boss was lovely. He said, take the rest of the day off, stay offline, take the rest of the afternoon off, go outside, get some air. If you need anything over the weekend, call me on my personal phone. It's totally fine. I love my boss. I just said, I'm not ready to talk to him yet. I still have some processing that I have to do. This is part of it, right? When I'm triggered, I don't tell my people to do things that I don't do. I have to do the same thing. And you have to kind of work through it and journal it and create that awareness of what just happened. And also separate the present from the past. That's a big deal because you have to be present. And that just triggered 3 of my top triggers of not being heard, not being acknowledged, and then being embarrassed and whatever. Like those are my top triggers, right?
Yeah.
All at one time.
Yeah.
So, right? And you got to give it a moment and you have to say, okay, but that's not that. That's this. And we'll work on that. We'll take that to therapy. That is totally fine. This right here, we're going to work on that.
Yes. Yes. That's wisdom in the workplace, because here's what it is. If you are able to do that separation, okay, yes, this reminds me of this, and some of the charge came from these past experiences. So I acknowledge that.
Yes.
And this just happened in the present moment, and it was not okay. And I'm not going to participate with anyone who thinks that that's an okay way to handle me in a meeting, in a setting, or privately. And so I need to figure out what languaging needs to be communicated to make that very clear moving forward. And if it happens again, what it looks like for me not to be communicating with that person.
I love that you just said that, because that's what I feel like we've been working towards, is getting into the mindset preparing for repair.
Yes.
If it's possible, it takes two people to repair.
Correct.
I'm willing to repair, but I will be able to articulate my boundaries very clearly.
Yes. And you can repair with a person who owns their part.
Right.
You cannot repair with a person who won't own their part. Clearly, like not this dancing around stuff where it's like, we both had, no. Hey, this is what I'm owning from my behavior without apology. What are you owning from your behavior without projecting any kind of or excusing it in any way? Because otherwise we can't repair. Repair requires me saying, I got this wrong, or I did this and it was wrong. And I'm asking you to forgive me if you will forgive me. The other person doesn't have to. They don't.
Yeah.
It could just be, great. I'm glad you're acknowledging that. And now I don't feel safe with you. And so I don't want to have any further interaction with you. And that's okay too. That can be a repair. Repair does not mean reconciliation.
Yes.
It does not.
That is very important. I've had a lot of practice with repair because I mess up a lot. But a lot of practice doing this.
But that's why you're willing to, because you know what it's like to have to go back to somebody and acknowledge that you did something that was harmful. That's a wonderful thing. And I think every human being needs to be able to do that and repair and own their stuff.
Yeah, I give a lot of grace because I need a lot of grace.
Right.
I so need a lot of
That's
grace,
your-
right? So I give a lot of grace, and I can hold space for someone who's triggered, which he clearly was triggered.
No.
Right? He was clearly triggered by something.
Sure.
And I'm just like going, I'm curious now that I've had a chance to like
Right.
process. I'm super curious right now what was happening for him in that moment.
Sure. Yeah. And here's the thing. Here's what's interesting. Because we started the conversation talking about a lot of these dynamics that happen in the workplace come from childhood experiences or family system experiences. So when it shows up at work, there's a lot of people that it's their choice whether they're willing to look at that stuff from their childhood. And it may not be their desire to do that. And it may not be time for them to do that. And so then how do you then proceed in a workplace where you have to work alongside someone when what's holding back the repair is something that comes way before they knew you? And they're the ones that get to decide to look at that or not. It's literally an invitation. The triggers on both sides are an invitation to do that inner work from our foundation, from the cement of our foundation.
That is so important what you just said. That is so important that they have a choice whether they're going to work on it and face it or they're not. So then talk a little bit more about how do you handle a situation where the other party either is not able to repair in the moment because they don't have the capacity or the willingness to do it, or they don't want to repair.
This is a really good question. And it happens a lot in work environments, in friendships, in sibling dynamics. It is a capacity issue. It is also a willingness issue. I did a post a couple weeks ago and I said, distance is the new response to abuse and disrespect. Distance is the answer. And so how that can look in a work environment, there are some different ways it can look in the work environment. If someone is unwilling to own their contribution and even further going to continue to behave in the same way, then you have to create some separation of your own. You've done your own separation from what was past to present, but there may be a need to create some separation in that work environment and to do so with the support, hopefully, of your management team. And what that looks like is I'm no longer going to be in meetings with this person. I will do things on replay and I will do things through written communication. So there's no miscommunication of what I might be doing. I can't be smeared for something because it's in black and white, all of those types of things. There are times when people leave workplaces because of it,
Yes. Yes.
because they don't safe, and the person that they have had this rupture with is a direct report person or someone they have to work with alongside on a regular basis. And they do not feel safe any longer in the work environment. And so they plan their exit. But this
Yeah, that
is what's required when there is abuse, disrespect, or someone is unwilling to take responsibility for the ways in which they impact other people in the environment.
yeah. And this was an unfortunate incident, but it was between equals. Now, this stuff happens when there's a power differential. And buddy, you want to see fireworks. There are some serious fireworks there, especially when what happens if that was my boss that did that? to me?
Right. And then it does happen.
It does happen.
And it's the same dynamic if we go into looking at what are the comparisons between what happens in narcissistic family systems and what happens in narcissistic work systems. It's the same thing. There is an authority figure in both places, or authority figures. Those authority figures often create, I call it, it's almost like a cult. It's like a network of people. There are golden children in the workplace, children in the workplace. There are
Yes.
scapegoats in the workplace. There are flying monkeys and enablers in the workplace. And that keeps that system operating around that abusive person or the abusive leadership. And so in the same way that you would do with a child who's trying to exit an abusive family system, in a work environment, you're negotiating those same terms. Let's say I'm the scapegoat in the workplace. That means every time there is an issue or an error, I'm going to get held responsible for it. Well, you're not safe in that work environment, because people will do two things. If you do well, they'll take credit for your doing well, like they're the ones that did it. If you do wrong or you make an error, then you're going to get dumped all of the responsibility for the error and you'll be penalized for it. So it's not safe to stay in that environment. In the same way, it's not safe to stay connected to a family system where people in leadership or people in positions of power, and the positions of power could be a golden child as well as a parent, are allowed to behave in ways that impact other folks in that system with no consequence or accountability.
Yeah. Let's just stay here for a second. Let's tread water for a second together, because there are a lot of people who are in very toxic work environments that have this power differential, power dynamics, and all the system that you were just talking about. But also, they need the money. They need the job.
Yeah.
They have the tools to really put up with some terrible stuff. They have done that their whole lives. They have put up with it, like put up with it.
Right.
How should they approach that situation when they know there is nothing I can do to change this environment?
Yes.
When they get to that point,
Yes.
how should they look at that?
There is no one answer to that, because there's like lots of different factors. You could be putting up with this system, but you absolutely love the work that you do, and you absolutely love the customers you work with, and you absolutely love your coworkers. But you've got this power differential and you're a target. Okay. Then you have to decide. It's like opportunity costs. Is what I'm
Yes.
putting up with worth what I'm getting from the environment in terms of the work that I'm doing and the mission that I'm on and the friendships that I have with coworkers and network that I'm building here? You know, that's one scenario. Another one might be, what's the toll this is taking on my body? How is this impacting how I'm able to go home to my family? There's a cost. So you got to weigh the cost. It's not one way to look at it. For me, because of the gift of trauma that my body had, the collapses that it did, when I assess a situation now or a relationship, there is no cost worth my body's ability to function because I'm responsible for kids. Okay. There's no cost. So if I'm in an environment and I have become the target of people in authority, I have to go because the
Yeah.
cost is too great
Yeah.
for me to endure that. There are some people that can, there's a term that I use with clients called loving detachment. They can detach from that workspace, and when they done with the day, they go home and they aren't impacted with it.
Yes.
They're able to have the time with their spouse and their kids or their partner or whoever, and it doesn't bleed over into that.
Right.
They don't dread Monday morning. They can put that authority figure and put their head down, do their work, and get benefit from the work that they're doing. So there's not just one answer. It's really for each person to assess, what is it costing me to stay in this environment? And if it's costing you your health, your life force, what does it look like for me to plan or look at planning an exit from this space and do so over time? I do it with clients of narcissistic abuse and relationships. What's my exit plan? What's my exit strategy? That exit
Yes.
strategy may not be leaving that workplace, but you write a book or you write a film and you start selling that thing so that you make enough income to leave. I mean, it can be all kinds of different things. But what I will say is if you are in a workspace where there is a heavy narcissistic leadership dynamic or people in leadership who are looking the other way and allowing narcissistic behaviors to happen without account,
Yeah.
there is going to be a cost for you. And it's typically going to cost you your health over.
Yeah.
And it's like a slow drip.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more for those who maybe are not aware. Tell us what some of those behaviors, those narcissistic behaviors look like in the workplace.
In a workplace, it looks like people who are predatory, like con men or women. These are the people that are literally not wanting to do their own work, but they want to attach to really high performing people so they can take credit for and be attached to the hard work that they do. That's one of those. It's literally exploitative, opportunistic type folks. Leechy people. It looks like people who are very grandiose in terms of their assessment of themselves and a devaluing of everyone else around them, everyone else's contributions. If they do something, it's the most. And if you do something, it's not even acknowledged or invalidated at worst. It looks like a person who has no empathy. None. I've heard stories of people literally going to chemotherapy in the workspace and telling a direct report boss, I have chemo. And the person saying, well, that doesn't affect the fact that you have this report due. They don't have any empathy for your humanity in the workspace. You can have a child have illness or pass away, or a mother or father pass away, and that manager or that director could care less. When you talk about narcissistic traits, you're talking about a person who thinks more highly of themselves. They think they're unique and special, and their rules don't apply to them, but they apply to everybody else. And if anybody else steps out of line, they're going to point it out. It looks like a person with no empathy at all. It looks like an exploitative person that manipulates environments to get what they want. It looks like a person who will take advantage of other people in order to look good. They'll take over someone else's work so that they're the ones that gets credit for it. And these are things you learn as a child, watching that happen in your own family system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so so here I am. I'm still at work. I'm still working with this guy.
Yeah.
He's showing me these narcissistic, I'm going to call it tendencies, like
traits. Yeah.
traits.
Uh-huh.
And I still have to work with him.
Uh-huh.
So, like, what does this look like for me going forward?
A great question. It looks like distance, and distance can look like you get an email that's 10 pages long, exaggerating, and you respond with whatever is absolutely necessary to respond. You give them very little to feed on, very little supply of your attention, energy, and effort. You give them what's required for whatever the project is or whatever you're working on, but you do so in a very, we call it gray rocking in terms. So the gray rock is where you're very uninteresting. You're flat in your response. There's no life. You're not giving them any of your life. So they send you this, and the response is to provoke this reaction or provoke whatever. And you give them just the minimal, basic, bland response.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. I am so happy to hear you say that because that's what I've been doing, but I'm feeling guilty, right? I'm inviting him to my meetings. Sometimes you CC your partner so that they can listen in. So not doing that.
Yeah.
I am not responding to his validation requests for me to validate him. Not doing that. When he requests something, I am giving him a very concise business response. Your name at work should be treasured. A good name
Yes.
is far above rubies, the Bible says.
Wow.
My reputation at work, I don't want to come across as vindictive, but also I am not going to allow someone to treat me badly,
Correct.
continue to get away with that
Correct.
without consequence.
Correct.
Hey, you know what? Up until that point, I was willing. You want to move into leadership? Hey, I'm happy to support you. I'm happy to help you. Nope.
Yeah.
Because that's not leadership to me. That is not good leadership material. And until you work on that stuff, I'm not supportive of you being a leader because I would not want to work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. What it does, what you're doing is you're teaching people how to treat you.
Ooh, that's good.
Teaching
Say more.
how to treat you. When a person behaves badly and doesn't take ownership, it's wisdom for you to move away from that person and protect your heart. The Bible says, guard your heart with all diligence because from it flows the issues of life. You are guarding your time, your attention, your energy, your heart, because that energy has to be put into something that's going to yield a return that's good for you. And having these atmospheres with this person who hasn't taken responsibility for themselves depletes your energy. It's not life-giving. Yeah. So that's not vindictive. That's wisdom. It's good stewardship of your personhood.
To me, it's been very freeing because I'm focusing on the work.
Right.
I have the relationships. After that whole event, I went one by one to my business partners and apologized that they had to experience that because it blows sideways.
Yeah.
In that secondary trauma, you have to see that and it can impact your relationships. And so I went back on purpose to each one of them and said, I'm sorry that you had to observe that, experience that. That was really very unprofessional. Now, I didn't take responsibility for initiating it, but I was very sorry that they had to experience that.
Can we sit with this unprofessional? Because often it's almost like professionalism. What's behind being professional is perfection, not human.
Oh, that's really good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's putting on the mask. Yeah. Yeah, that's really good.
I'm sitting with it because when people say, I didn't show up in a profession, they're actually saying is, I didn't show up perfectly in that situation. I really sat with this concept of professionalism because often professionalism means a perfect robot and you responded with just this perfect response without any emotion, without any humanity. It's almost like the PC way that we're told we're supposed to respond in situations removes our humanity from the conversation.
That is so powerful. That is so powerful. I'm just going to receive that right now and let it sift, because that is something that the business partner said to me. We're all human. We're all human. We all don't show up the way that we want to show up at times.
Yeah.
And that's permission. It's permission to be infallible.
Yes. Yes. And that be the normalized part We don't want to make work spaces inhumane. Like we're not supposed to be a human being in that space. In
Yeah.
the name of what? What's the end goal of you being professional? I think we need to reclaim that word. Being professional includes your humanity.
Yeah. You're allowed to mess up as long as you take responsibility for it.
Correct. That's
Right?
not professional. If you want to talk about what's not professional is someone doing harm in the workplace and thinking that they can get away with it and not take responsibility for it.
Yeah. That's not cool.
Let's reclaim that word, that is what it actually means to be unprofessional in a space, is to do harm to your coworkers or your business partners or your customer or your clients and not take responsibility for it.
Yeah. That word being unprofessional is starting to come up for me right now because the whole context of that situation was he was doing something unprofessional, like talking over me, even though I stopped a couple times to like, maybe I jumped in too soon. But no, it was definitely him doing that 3 times in a row. And a peer of mine who I respect greatly said, "Hey guys, this is unprofessional." And at that point in time is when I sent him that little note, which he then read to everybody outside and said, "Cindy, you can't tell me to shut the hell up. That's unprofessional." So he like projected that onto me in front of everybody. That's why I was humiliated.
What?
So I'm like, click. I'm meaning to be over.
Wow.
But that whole projection stuff, I've lived in that space. I've lived in that space where the leader's stuff doesn't stink.
It's a sign of a
Hey.
narcissistic system at work.
And everything is your fault. And you're the one who messed up, but they don't make any messes or they are perfect. Their stuff doesn't stink. So that's like,
Yes.
right?
Take a breath on that.
Let's take a breath together.
Because what you're talking about is the same dynamic of what happens in narcissistic families, where the parent never apologizes or owns what they've done. But the child or children are held accountable when they make a mistake.
Yeah.
And it mirrors it perfectly in the workspace. And we're seeing it globally in governments and systems where people are being hunted down and thrown in prison and taken out of the country for doing certain things against the law while people in power regularly
Doing things against the law. It's like so hypocritical. So now, Kimberly, I have this guy that I have to work with.
Mhm.
And I usually take responsibility for these things, right? Well, I'm usually at fault. Oh, let me just own that. It's usually me. Now I'm sitting with this, and I did not initiate this or start this. I'm willing, but I'm not sure that I want to say, let me know when you're ready to talk about that. That's what I was thinking about doing. And I'm not sure if I really want to do that. But maybe, yes, because maybe it's an olive branch. Maybe it's me saying, I'm now willing to talk about what happened last week. It'll be 2 weeks. It'll be the second week. But when he came back, he didn't seek out, hey, let's talk about what just happened. He didn't do that. So I'm curious, do you think that's a good strategy? My advisor?
Do you feel safe to have the conversation?
Yeah, I do feel safe. And I feel regulated.
Okay.
And I felt very supportive and also validated from my leadership and all my business partners. So I feel that security in those relationships that enables me to have that, hey, let's talk about that. Because that was not okay.
Do you feel the need to have a witness?
That's a great question. I mean, sorry. God is my witness always, but also,
Of course, God is going to be there. But what I mean is, based on this person's behavior, would it be beneficial to you to have a third party in the space as a witness to the conversation?
Kind of feel like that. Now, my boss and his peer leader, I mean, the other guy who's the leader over both of us, talked to him together. So they said, that's not okay. So they had that conversation with him.
Mm.
And I just turned it over. I surrendered and I said, okay, you guys handle that. I'm not doing that.
Mm.
But I'm curious about maybe asking my boss, how do you think I should handle this? Would it be helpful we have to work together. So I want to make sure that he knows that that's not acceptable.
Mhm.
You're not going to treat me that way.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think a conversation with your boss would be great.
Yeah.
And I also think that you get to decide if you do that with someone present or whether you do it one-on-one. It's what your nervous system needs to repair.
Yes. Yes. I like that. See, I knew there's a reason I had to talk to you.
Because think about it. There are things in your childhood you didn't get a choice
Yes.
in these circumstances, and now you have a choice in these circumstances.
You know what? We're learning all about choice in therapy.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing.
Yes. It is a wonderful thing. I remember when I was coming out of my marriage, that was what was echoing in my heart and my mind. I have choices. I'm not stuck. I'm not in a place where I don't have any authority or any agency over what's happening to me. I can choose my way into safety. I can choose my way into freedom. I'm not at the mercy of this person.
And stay there, right there. Just stay right there right now, because I hear that so often from my folks. I'm stuck.
Correct.
I can't move. And as trauma survivors, I get that. We feel like because we're our younger selves in that moment, we feel stuck. We feel like we don't have agency. We feel like we don't have choice.
Yeah.
We feel like we don't have a voice. How do you get free from that? Because that's a very habitual way of thinking. It's also meant to keep us safe.
Yes. Yes. And getting free, the first part of it is just acknowledging that's what's coming up. Oh, I'm having that constricted feeling again. That
Yes.
frozen feeling again. And the accompanying messaging. I'm hearing on the inside, I feel stuck. I feel lost. I feel trapped. I don't feel like I have a choice. You talk about noticing. Just being aware
Yeah.
that sense is happening in your body again, and that the accompanying thoughts attached to that sense are present. A big part is just acknowledging and bringing into your conscious awareness that that's happening in the situation.
Yeah. That is so good. That is so powerful.
A
Yeah.
lot of power in just being aware that that's the tape that's running on the inside.
Yeah. And it's been interesting because I've been becoming aware that when I acknowledge what's happening in my head or what's happening in my body,
Yes.
and I say it out loud,
Yes.
I hear it. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. This is what you're saying. I hear you. Right? And your body speaks to you. Like you get this pain in your head, you get this headache for a week or whatever. And really your body's like, what is that pain trying to tell you?
Yes. 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 Or what is the fact that I haven't gotten out of bed all weekend trying to tell me?
Yeah, it's communication.
It is. It is. It's data. It's communication. It's also memory.
Yes. Because it lives in your body, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you pair the awareness and the noticing with I have choices, so you can slow down to take care of your nervous system and your body with that awareness, you can actually move in a different direction, even though it feels uncomfortable.
Because you've slowed down enough for your frontal cortex to come back online.
Correct. Correct.
And then you can continue to move forward because you do have the ability to choose at that point.
Correct.
But not when you're dysregulated.
Correct. And it will feel uncomfortable. This is interesting because I just had to do this in a business situation. It will feel like I'm not supposed to be doing this because your innate response is to shrink, not move.
Yes.
So it will feel uncomfortable, but you can still do it in the discomfort. You can still have your brain come back online, assess the different choices that you have, and move in that discomfort. And that practice over time, going back to that charge, being intent,
Yes.
will make it easier and easier each time you have those somatic imprints come up, the memories come up, the messaging attached to it come up. It will make it easier and more quick to move through that feeling of I'm trapped. You'll be able to move through it quicker and quicker each time.
Yeah, because you're expanding your window of tolerance, right?
That's correct.
You're dipping your toes in.
Right?
You're expanding your capability to sit with the discomfort.
Correct.
And you're continuing to move forward. So that is so powerful.
Yeah. And that
Yeah.
movement is building a new pathway.
It is. It's like cutting trail, but it takes work. It takes effort, sweat equity.
This is the inner work of that healing and repair. The repair can happen with the person that you have the situation with, but there is a repair internally that you'll be doing simultaneously. Because you don't have to wait for that person to act right to do that inner repair.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, this was so helpful. What else would you like folks to know about you? How can they get in touch with you if they want to work with you?
So if someone wants to work with me, you can do a couple of things. You can go to my website, which is thenarcissisticabusecoach.com. You can go to my Instagram, and my Instagram is Instagram at I am Kimberly Weeks. Send me a DM. Let me know you want to work on something in the workplace. It could be a personal relationship. It could be something with your family system. It could be a parent or a sibling relationship. I have been working with a lot of sibling relationships lately too. But those are the ways that you can reach me. And if you're interested in healing in community with women, I have a women's group. It's called Stand Firm. It's for people who have dealt with narcissistic abuse in many different ways. The workplace is one of them as well. You can send me a message and say, I'm interested in Stand Firm, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. And tell them more about Global Trauma Institute.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Well, let me give you a little
Send
opportunity
me
to
a
plug
line
that.
for that. Yes, yes. And also, I teach a course. I teach a couple of courses, but I'm a co-founder of an institute called the Global Trauma Institute, where we are building an army of trauma care practitioners who are from all kinds of different backgrounds, working on specific areas of trauma recovery. We have people who work with people who are going through grief and loss, people who are working with family system dynamics, people who are working with people who are narcissistic abuse survivors, people who are wanting to deal with the parts of themselves that were fragmented because of their childhood experiences. So all of those things are available. I teach a course in it called Narcissistic Abuse Practitioner Course. I'm in the middle of my semester now, but I'll be teaching it again in the fall. Or you can join us for our initial course, which is the Certified Trauma Care Practitioner course in the fall, as well as starting in September. And I'm so excited about it because we're growing and there are people all over the world that are joining us. And we support our practitioners. We meet with them every single week in what we call group consultation, which is a supervision group. You can bring cases of your clients as you're working together and get support, because we all need to continue to be supported, even though we are working with trauma survivors. And we need to continue to do our own internal work as well.
I'm so glad that you were able to join us. Thank you for joining us for your Trauma Wise Career Guide. We thank you so much, Kimberly, and hopefully you'll have a lot of people reaching out to contact you.
You're not walking this path alone. Every step you take toward a trauma-wise career is an act of courage, and I'm here cheering you on. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with another survivor who needs to hear this message. Together, we're rewriting the rules of career success. Keep rising, keep healing, keep building.